Today is the fourth Sunday of Advent, of Lent. And next Tuesday is St. Patrick's Day. How do we integrate Patrick into today's readings? In the first reading, we have Cyrus, who liberates Israel from captivity, from slavery, to go back to Jerusalem, free to rebuild the temple. Patrick was the first bishop in the Catholic Church to condemn slavery. So Patrick and Cyrus have something in common. And then in the gospel reading, it begins with what Moses did in the desert when the people were bitten by the snakes and were dying. He was told to put a dead snake on a cross or on a pole and lift up the dead snake. And it was through something that was a sign of death, or an instrument of death, would also become an instrument of life, as the cross was. The cross was the sign of the crucifixion. Yet it be through the cross as an instrument not only of death but of life. Now, Patrick's spirituality that he brought, or that he allowed to develop in Ireland, was a spirituality that could be expressed by the Celtic cross. But before I get to that, St. Augustine in the early 5th century was dying. And as he was dying, he could see that the Roman Empire was dying. And he wondered, how would the church be able to survive without the Roman Empire? But at the very time when he was dying and the empire was also diminishing, Patrick was sent to Ireland to bring about a new spirituality. Not himself, but it would evolve. And the spirituality was far different than Augustine's. Augustine had a dualistic spirituality, where there was a difference between body and soul. And the soul struggled against the body, and related to the body as a master to a slave. That the body could not be trusted, that emotions could not be trusted, that pleasure was also suspect. Whereas Patrick had a holistic spirituality and allowed one to develop in Ireland, where pleasure was considered good, and so was the body, and so was the emotions. And the Celtic cross expressed this insofar as it was a cross. It was a cross of redemption, but at the same time there's a circle around that cross, an eternal circle, that the cross was seen in the light of eternity. But the circle also represented the earth. It represented the moon. It represented the sun. These were the great creatures of God that were a blessing to all humankind. And Patrick's spirituality emphasized not only the negative in life, but the positive too. We see in the Garden of Eden, when everything was happiness, that the sun gave glory to God, the moon, the stars, the animals, the vegetation. Everything gave praise to God, including Adam and Eve. And then something happened, and we have sin. And there was a disconnection between creatures and God. And Augustine emphasized that disconnection. And his spirituality was about sin and redemption. But at times he could exaggerate it. Whereas the spirituality of Patrick brought the cross and the circle and the sun and the moon and the stars back together in a harmony, in a cosmic harmony, a cosmic justice, St. Thomas Aquinas said that we live in relationship to the earth. And if we do not recognize that, then somehow we become violent in a way. We want to control things. The great step in leading to slavery was we cannot control sometimes our emotions, our body, our pleasure. And since we cannot control ourselves, then we cannot control other people. And slavery is based upon the control of everybody or of other people. All the empires seem, in a way, wanting to control. Now that relates to our own life insofar as at times we want to control people. We do not want to give them really the freedom of what Cyrus gave the Israelites to go back and rebuild their temple, or the fact that Patrick condemned slavery, to give the people the freedom to worship in the way they want to live their life in a certain way that people want to. Now, to keep the balance between sin and between the goodness of God's creation to us, to keep that balance, we need contemplation. We need contemplation to savor the blessings of God, to see goodness in the things that God has created for us. Oh, there may be a danger, but do not let the danger of our inordinate wills destroy the goodness of God has given to us. We can be negative about ourselves, but we should look positively about ourselves, that God views us in a much more positive way than we view ourselves. Of all his creatures, we are the one creature, the one kind of creature that God takes so much delight in. He takes pleasure in us even when we wander away from him. God is still there. Now, there's a prayer attributed to St. Patrick called the Cry of the Deer. I arise today with a mighty power, through the invocation of the Trinity, through the blessings of the threeness, through the confession of the oneness of the Creator of the earth. Right away, Patrick speaks about the Trinity and our relationship to it. And he goes on to say, I arise today with the strength of the heavens, with the light of the sun, with the brilliance of the moon, with the radiance of fire, with the speed of lightning, with the swiftness of wind. He mentions all these things with the stability of the earth and the firmness of the rock. All these creatures of God for us are a blessing. And he goes on to talk about how Christ enters into our life. Christ is with us. He's before us. He's beside us. He's after us. When we lie down, Christ is with us. When we sit up, he's with us. When we rise, he is with us. Christ is in the heart of everyone that sees us. Christ is in the ear of everyone who hears us. Christ is in the hands of everyone so that we can be held in esteem. Yes, there is this glorious recognition of creation. Patrick's spirituality is called a creation spirituality, of rejoicing in all the good things that God has given us. This is the same creation spirituality that we found in Francis of Assisi and in St. Clare, where for them the moon and the sun and the earth are our brothers and our sisters. They are there for us to be special creatures. So we are called with creation spirituality and also with Celtic spirituality to realize the goodness of even the dust because the dust of the earth has a soul, and it should be reverenced. And the more we reverence the things around us, the more the cosmos enters into us, and we enter into the cosmos. St. Thomas Aquinas says that all through the cosmos there can be found ecstasy, and love produces ecstasy. If we love the gifts that God has for us, then we can be ecstatic. So contemplation is to lead us to discover not only the beauty and the wonder of nature, but also the beauty and the wonder of our own soul and our own body, to rejoice in it, and also never to try to control someone else, to give them the freedom to be, the freedom to discover their own beauty, their own magnificence in their own lives and what God has given them.